Nikolay frowned as he stared at his plate, unimpressed by the meager portion of pasta in front of him. "Is this what you call dinner?" he complained to his wife, Katya. Calmly, Katya responded, "We couldn't afford meat this time, Nikolay." "I'm a man. I need meat," he insisted, his dissatisfaction growing. Trying to explain their situation, Katya said, "We don't have enough money for meat right now. I had to use it for groceries." Nikolay's anger flared up, suspecting that Katya had wasted their money on unnecessary items again. "Where did you spend it all? On useless things like nails and rags? I just gave you my paycheck recently." Katya looked at her neglected nails, sighing, and calmly corrected him. "Nikolay, you gave me your last paycheck 3 weeks ago. It was all used for essentials. I didn't buy any extras for myself." Frustrated, Nikolay retorted, Yes, I trusted you, and look at this." Silently, Katya began eating, feeling tired of the constant arguments and dissatisfaction with their financial situation. She wished her husband would show more initiative in finding a better-paying job. "You just need to work harder if you want more money," Nikolay shouted. "Am I supposed to slave away like a horse from morning till night? Maybe you should spend less on your beauty salon visits." Katya responded quietly, "I already work 2 jobs, Nikolay, and it's not easy." "What kind of work do you have?" "All day long, you sit and chat with chickens," he belittled her. "That's not real work. I could do 3 shifts of work like that." Frustrated, Katya retorted, "Then go find a job like that. Sit around, do nothing, and get paid." Although Katya had some savings, she had been saving up for a new coat, not because she wanted one, but because her current one was in poor condition. She tried her best to cover up the wear and tear, sewing on buttons and appliques, but it was clear that it was time for a new one. However, the next day, Katya went to the store and purchased a chicken. The expense was deducted from their savings account. "It's all right," she reassured herself. "I'll just add the promised bonus to it this month." Her husband was unimpressed by the chicken. He looked disgustedly at the dish she had cooked and quietly left the table, indicating that he had no intention of eating this subpar meal. In truth, Nicholas went to his mother's house after work and had dinner there, claiming that his wife had spent all the money on a manicure and there was nothing to eat at home. His mother shook her head disapprovingly, regretting that her son had married such a spendthrift, and served him a hearty bowl of borscht that she had made, hoping it would last for a week. The elderly woman also tried to save money as much as possible. The cost of medicine had skyrocketed, forcing her to choose between eating and receiving proper medical treatment. On payday, Nikolay only gave his wife half of his paycheck. "But I need a new jacket for the winter," he explained. "I've been wearing this one for 2 years already. It's enough. And is it normal that I've been wearing the same coat for 5 years?" Katya protested. "Well, you have to choose," her husband retorted. "Either you go to nail salons or you get a new coat." "Oh, really? And what about the loan and the utility bill? According to you, who pays for those?" Katya exclaimed. "Are there really so many utilities to pay for?" Nicholas questioned. "Take a look yourself," Katya replied. "There are even more of them. Am I expected to handle all the bills as a woman?" Katya wept uncontrollably, bidding farewell to her coveted new coat. However, her husband paid no heed to her tears, retreating silently into the other room. "Don't be hysterical," he barked. "Go and warm up dinner for me." The following day at work, everything seemed to slip out of Katya's grasp. After lunch, she summoned the courage to approach her boss, Ivan Trofimovich. "Katerina, I can't help but notice that something is amiss today. Do you have any problems?" he inquired. "No," she replied softly, although tears betrayed her composure. "All right then, let's calm down," Ivan Trofimovich responded, pouring a glass of water from the decanter on his desk and handing it to Katya. He waited until she took a few sips before urging, "Now, tell me." And so Katya poured out her heart. unburdening herself of the weight she had carried for far too long. She had tried to put on a facade, pretending that everything was fine, but she could no longer keep up the charade. "Do you have any children?" her boss inquired upon hearing her story. "No," Katya admitted, her voice trembling. "Well, that's probably for the best," Ivan Trofimovich commented. "With a husband like yours, it's better not to bring any children into the picture. But I can offer you assistance on your own. It may be harder with children. You see, our factory has a dormitory, a relic of the past of sorts. The conditions may not be luxurious, but they are livable. One of our workers recently got married and vacated her spot. I will write you a referral. Take some time to think about it, but don't take too long. There are others in need as well." "Thank you, Ivan Trofimich," Katya said, drying her tears. "But don't dismiss it outright. Take some time to think about it." "Give it a week," the boss responded, studying her with concern. "And now, go to work." Nicholas didn't speak to his wife and skipped dinner, as was his habit to visit his mother after work. Katya attempted to reconcile with him by buying some leftover money chops. However, Nikolai defiantly ignored the gesture and walked past the kitchen. Yet during the night while his wife slept, he sneaked in and took half a tray of meat. Katya noticed the disappearance but remained silent, hoping it would lead to reconciliation. Just before the lunch break, Ivan Trofimovich burst into the room where Katya and the other women were working. "Girls, I need your help. We urgently need to take samples of our products to potential customers." The women exchanged glances and began refusing and inventing excuses. However, Katya decided to assist the boss. "Ivan Trofimich, let me handle it," she volunteered, getting up from her desk. The customers were impressed with the samples. They examined them with admiration and promised a substantial order. But what embarrassed Katya the most was one customer who complimented not only the products, but also her. He even escorted her to the building's exit. "Katya, can we meet again sometime?" he asked, quickly adding, "For business, of course. Come by the factory." Katerina beamed, her spirits lifted as she strolled leisurely toward the bus stop. Suddenly, she spotted Nikolai entering a place with another man. Curiosity piqued, Katya cautiously approached and checked the sign. It was a cafe. Peering through the vast window, she glimpsed her husband relishing the dishes before him. Determined to unravel the source of Nikolai's newfound dining funds, Katerina entered the establishment and headed towards his table. Opting to avoid a public confrontation, she chose to eavesdrop on their conversation first, hoping the man accompanying him was expressing gratitude. Seated behind small partitions, Katya listened in. "The ribs are fantastic today," remarked the stranger. "Indeed," Nikolai agreed, "but the salad falls short, lacks dressing and salt. It's just right for me." "I don't know. You're just being picky," the man chuckled. "Have you forgotten what your wife feeds you for dinner?" "I don't dine at home anymore," Nikolai declared proudly. "Are you going to restaurants then?" "No, to my mother's. She knows how to feed a man. I can't afford to go to restaurants twice a day." Doesn't Katerina wonder why you give her so little money? She does. She thinks my salary is the same as 2 years ago. She doesn't need to know how much I make. Soon, I won't give her any money at all. She'll be fine. It's enough that she lives in my apartment. What if she leaves? Who needs her? She's got no backbone or character. Listen to this. Katerina felt an overwhelming urge to stand up from her seat and confront her husband, wanting to scratch at his face. She had denied herself everything because of this man, and yet he had the audacity to speak about her in that way. Katya wiped away her tears and emerged from her hiding place. "And you're mistaken, Kolya," she exclaimed. "I'm leaving you and filing for divorce." "Don't be hysterical." Nikolai quickly recovered from the shock of his wife's sudden appearance. "Save yourself the embarrassment and just leave." "Do you see?" He turned towards their interlocutor. "I told you. Not only does she look like a homeless woman and can't cook, but she's also hysterical. I'm tired of her constant emotional outbursts. It was Nikolay who shouted these words at Katya. Do you know why I look like a mess? Katya scanned the eyes of the cafe patrons, who were now interested spectators of their unfolding spectacle. It's because he spends his entire salary on himself. Meanwhile, I work 2 jobs, using my hard-earned money to pay the bills, cover our debts, and even provide for this thoughtful gentleman's meals. And to top it off, he feeds his pensioner mother without considering that her pension is meager and she would starve if she didn't eat. I'm done with you. Katerina turned on her heel and, amidst the thunderous silence that enveloped the cafe, headed towards the exit. Hysterical, Nikolay yelled after her, but she didn't even bother turning around. And indeed, Kolya, the person sitting across from Nikolay, interjected, looking at him attentively. Your wife cannot be accused of spending all the money on herself. Furthermore, it's disgraceful to mooch off an elderly woman. You don't even pay for her meals, do you? I didn't think so. Instead, you squander all your money on fancy restaurants and clothes. And let's not forget that you're also unfaithful to your wife. And who are you to be listening in? Nikolay began his futile attempts to justify himself. I'm not listening, the person interrupted. I can see that everything she said is true. I'm sorry, but I can't sit at the same table as you. The man angrily threw some bills on the table and stormed out of the room. Nikolay, seething with anger, could barely wait until the end of the workday to rush home. Katya, he shouted from the doorway, but there was no response. Without even taking off his coat, Nikolay searched the living room and bedroom, but his wife was nowhere to be found. Concerned that something was wrong, he opened the closet, only to find her clothes missing. He hurried to the kitchen, but it was empty except for the apartment keys on the dining table. Fine. We'll see how long you can keep this up. You'll come crawling back, he muttered in frustration. Meanwhile, Katya stood in front of the mirror, admiring her new clothes. Since leaving her husband, she had unexpectedly come across some extra money that she managed to save. Sitting on the bed, she counted the cash with surprise. The new coat she had been eyeing had become a reality, and the new boots were a welcome bonus. What's the matter? Are you surprised? Laughed her roommate Svetlana. Do you think Santa Claus left them for you? I don't even know what to think, whispered Katerina in disbelief. Svetlana shrugged. Well, what's there to think about? You don't pay much for the dorm, you don't have any loans to pay off, and you barely eat anything. With your paycheck, you could easily support yourself, yet you're still working another job, so there's nothing to be surprised about. Together with Svetlana, Katya accompanied Svetlana to the shopping center where they picked out a coat and boots. Afterward, they went to a cafe to celebrate their purchases with ice cream. During their conversation, Svetlana slyly asked, Is Roman coming today? She had noticed Roman's romantic interest in Katya, which began after Katya moved into the dormitory. Initially hesitant, Katya finally agreed to go on a date with Roman under Svetlana's persuasion. Svetlana believed that Roman could prove to Katya that not all men were like her ex-boyfriend, Nikolay. Today was their 3rd date. Normally, they would go for a walk in the park since Katya felt self-conscious about her clothes, but today she was willing to accept Roman's invitation to go to a cafe. Meanwhile, Nikolay sat alone at a table, sulking as he picked at his plate of sticky pasta. He realized he had no money in his pockets. In the first month after Katya left, Nikolay continued living as he had before, even finding some relief in not having to share his resources with his wife. However, a month later, he received a call. You have an overdue loan payment. We have added penalties, and we expect payment soon. The voice on the other end of the line informed him. Nikolay was outraged. How could this be? Why wasn't Katya paying for the loan? He immediately called his wife to scold her. The loan is under your name, and the item purchased with the credit is still with you. So why should I be responsible for paying it? Katya calmly responded before ending the call. After a period of time, the unpaid utility bills started to accumulate along with Nikolai's loan arrears. He had never considered the responsibility of paying the bills, and as a result, they had become quite substantial. With his forgetfulness in turning off lights and conserving water, the expenses continued to grow. Faced with this situation, Nikolai had no choice but to use his salary to pay off his debts, leaving him with very little money. Desperate for assistance, he went to his mother's house, only to find out she had been hospitalized. She had spent most of her pension on providing food for Nikolai, leaving her unable to afford the necessary medication for herself, which led to complications and hospitalization. Even the meals at his mother's house were no longer a viable solution for Nikolai. Bitterly cursing Katerina, he purchased the cheapest pasta with his last bit of money, hoping to endure until his next paycheck. However, after a week of surviving on this monotonous diet, Nikolai couldn't bear to look at another plate of pasta. In an attempt to momentarily distract himself from his hunger, he decided to take a walk. It was a day off, and as he strolled through the streets, he noticed people leisurely enjoying themselves, visiting cafes and restaurants. Suddenly, he caught sight of his ex-wife through the window of a restaurant. She was engaged in lively conversation with a well-dressed man, evidently finding his words quite amusing. Overwhelmed with emotions, Nikolai quickly turned on his heels and hurried back home, where his cold macaroni awaited him.